The objective sports tier list is what we're making today. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another episode of I Will Never Get Anything Wrong in My Life. Today I'm creating an objective sports tier list. Some of you might be asking, well, what credentials does he have? Was he even an athlete? Well, I was basically the best ultimate tag and chaos tag player in my elementary school, so I think I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. Also, like that guy on the Dallas Mavericks, my first name is Luca. The way this is going to work is that I found this random tier list of create an all good sports tier list with some random sports that we're going to rate from goated, great, good, decent, and no. We're going to be rating them based on how fun they are to play, how fun they are to watch, what the level of athleticism involved is, what the level of skill involved is, and some other subjective ratings. Well, they would be subjective if I wasn't the one rating them. In lieu of the Denver Nuggets final victory, let's start with basketball. Basketball is an easy goated tier. It's an S tier sport. I would personally say it is the best sport of all time. It is dynamic. Something's always happening. It is fun to watch. It is fun to play. If you lose, it sucks, but you can always be better. Really high skill cap and really high athleticism. The one thing basketball does not have going for it is that you do need to be relatively tall to have a chance to make it professionally or play at the collegiate level. But, I think the pros outweigh the cons in this case. Basketball, easy goat. You might be asking, what does no as a tier mean also? I guess I should explain. This includes sports that have another sport that basically takes just precedent over them, like badminton versus tennis, in my opinion, or things that I don't really consider sports. I have a pretty rigid definition on what a sport actually is. I think I might get into that on another video sometime, but for now we're not going to get into this. Let's go over some no's. Archery, a no. It's not athletic enough. It's more of a competition than a sport. Bowling, need I say more? Spike ball is pretty nice if you're a college student that's getting drunk on a Sunday at a danger and is just waiting for 8 p.m. to get even more hammered. Golf. You knew this one was coming. I knew this one was coming. Also a competition, also a game, but not a sport. Sorry, Tiger. And lacrosse, because I don't think I've ever met someone that plays lacrosse professionally or at the college level and said, wow, that man is a killer athlete. From here on out, let's just go in order. The first thing we see is volleyball. I put volleyball in the great tier. I think volleyball is a world-renowned sport. It is fun to watch if you really get into it. It is one of the few Olympic sports that I actually like to watch, and it is one of the few Olympic sports that I like to watch that features both men and women. I'm not going to get into that discussion right now, so take that as you will. The volleyball is fun to watch for both sides of that spectrum. Besides that, athleticism is involved. There's definitely skill involved, and if you guys have not played volleyball recently, I highly recommend you check it out because it's actually pretty fun. And it is low activation energy. One con about volleyball is that you do need a net. You need a net and some people to play versus basketball where you only need a hoop, and a hoop is very, very easy to get, especially this day and age. Next, let's move on to, so these are boxing gloves, but I'm just gonna clump them up into any fighting sport. I'm gonna put them in the good tier. The one critique I have with fighting sports that generally goes against my definition of sports is that they're not objectively rated by the judge. There's no way to objectively rate, right? Judges have to, based on the eye test, decide how many points a fighter is given. That being said, it is an individual sport with an incredible amount of skill, an incredible amount of athleticism. If you guys haven't boxed or done kickboxing or any sort of UFC, MMA type event, that shit is hard, really hard. Shadowbox for 3 minutes, get your lazy ass up tomorrow and see how much you'll sweat if you really put your ass into it. I think it's a good sport. It's fun to watch, but there is that activation energy of getting into it itself, and it's kind of painful. I think that turns a lot of people off from doing the sport itself. Although I guess it's kind of useful if you need to protect yourself. Next, let's go. Okay, rugby and football. I'm gonna put these guys in together. I actually prefer rugby to football. Also, I should say that these tier lists aren't going to be in order. So yeah, I prefer rugby to football. I think football comes into the problem, and we'll get to baseball later, that it's just, in my opinion, boring to watch. Not enough is happening like in basketball. with all the timeouts and changes from offense to defense. I had this friend that always insisted on football being the modern day gladiators, but football players aren't the modern day gladiators. These guys are the modern day gladiators. Those are the fighting sports. Football, rugby, you need an incredible amount of athleticism, but then again, you also need a huge field, and you can't really play by yourself. That's an issue with a lot of sports. You can't practice by yourself. I guess tennis you can if you have a wall. But let's move on. I don't want to stay on football for too long. Swimming. I deliberated over swimming for a while, but I think I have a solid spot for it, and that is in the great tier. Swimming is an individual sport, which doesn't necessarily take anything away from it or give it any points, but any success you have as a professional swimmer is your own success, unless you're doing relays. But swimming is easy to pick up. Swimming is super healthy, probably the healthiest out of any sport to do here, just because it doesn't place a lot of exertion on your body. And it's just fun, man. You don't have to be a professional swimmer to swim, right? You go to the beach, you go to Hawaii, you go to the European seaside, you swim around. It's fun. It's chill. Lands it in a solid A. The only reason it's not a goated sport is because it's not really that fun to watch, in my opinion. But that's kind of offset by the fact that swimming events are usually pretty short. Cycling. Put it in the decent tier. Reason being, and I'm going to rate track and field the same tier real quick. The issue with these sports is that they're kind of just unadulterated athleticism. And you might be saying, that sounds like a good thing to me. Well, a sport like basketball or football even, or volleyball, all of these are extremely athletic sports, but also require you to be unequivocally skilled to be better than players, right? I mean, track and field and cycling, there's obviously a lot of skill that goes into it, but I wouldn't say there's as much skill that goes into it as something like basketball or football, right? Or even volleyball. Setting the volleyball is hard, dribbling the basketball is hard, shooting it is hard. Whereas track and field, yeah, I'm grouping them all together, but Usain Bolt, he's kind of just a better athlete than you. He's not super, I don't even think he's considered a skilled sprinter. The man is just 6'5" and fast. I wasn't going to say anything else. Kind of reminds me of an analogy for cycling and track and field, particularly the running sports of track and field, which I'm kind of critiquing right now, is that they're not applied. So it's like it's a theoretical physicist versus an applied physicist. One actually helps society and maybe becomes an engineer of sorts, and the other is Neil deGrasse Tyson. Decent tier. Tennis. Yes, tennis. I'm going to put it in the great tier. Yes, I'm Serbian as well. Jokic just won. It's a good year for Serbian athletes. But tennis deserves a spot in the A tier. It's an individual sport, so again, unless you're playing doubles, your success is your own. You can practice it by yourself. And though I don't consider it as athletic a sport as some of the others, in terms of sprinting, jumping, running, you still need a lot of conditioning. I think it's a lot of fun to play. Low activation energy if you wanted to play with your friends. But other than that, not too much to be said about tennis. I think it's a great sport. I think it's something you can play throughout your life. I did used to play tennis, so I'm a little biased there. I used to play tennis and basketball. I still play basketball. And I did some fighting sports when I was younger. So maybe there is some bias leaking through here, but tennis takes away from badminton, takes away from squash. I will argue till the ends of the earth that squash is not a sport because there's not enough competition in squash. I don't care where you're from. You can fight me about that. Wrestling, I'm putting it in the decent tier. I mean, wrestling, it seems like it's an okay sport. No one really watches it, is the thing. It's not dynamic or interesting. It's kind of low pizzazz. Basketball, volleyball, swimming, fighting sports, football, all more interesting to watch than wrestling. Athleticism in wrestling exists, but I think it's primarily skill focused. And then there's the whole weight class argument where not every top tier wrestler can wrestle against other top tier wrestlers just because they're not in the same weight class. Decent tier. Water polo. I'm I'm still deliberating really where to put water polo, but I think for now I'm going to put it in the decent tier. I don't think it takes as much skill as something like football, even though if you have played water polo, you'll understand how difficult it really is to breathe and swim, and you need a lot of conditioning to play this sport. I think it just lacks on the skills and watchability category that some of the other sports might have. Ping pong. Goated. Just kidding. I forgot to put it in no. Unfortunately, ping pong and badminton, they're just taken away by tennis. If you're not, it's like you pick those sports if you're not good at tennis. They're really fun to play. I think both of them are fun to play, but as like, are they competitive sports? I mean, sorry, ping pong players, but we might have to reconsider. Soccer. Piece de resistance when it comes to sports. I think this is probably the ideal sport for most people. Really easy to pick up. All you need is a ball and two things to place as a goal. You don't need to be tall. You can be tall. You just need to be conditioned and fast and athletic. An extremely skill-based sport. You don't understand how skill-based soccer is until you really try to play it, and it is a lot of fun to play, even with friends, even if you're bad. The watchability would probably make it lose a couple of points just in general, because not a lot happens in soccer. That is a common critique it has, but it's got some great moments. Probably the greatest sporting event of all time, in my opinion, the 2023 World Cup. That's all I really need to say. The World Cup is the biggest sporting event in the world. That Messi, Argentina versus Mbappe, France final. Soccer is just a sport where everybody gets behind, watches, and understands from at least like a national perspective. Really easy to pick up and understand what's going on. It's goal or not goal. And then once you understand what an offside is, that's that. Another reason soccer might not be as high on some other people's list is because that's what Ted Lasso is based on, and that show fucking blows after the first season. Fight me on that too. Hockey's an interesting one. I was previously going to put hockey in the decent tier until I realized I played hockey a couple of times. What an incredibly difficult sport. What an incredibly difficult sport. I mean, if it's in the same tier as football, it's got to be above football and rugby for me personally. I think you need the same level of athleticism with much more skill to play hockey. I mean, that is a brutal sport. It is not watched as much in America, obviously, but it is watched more than American football and rugby as far as I'm aware in other parts of the world, in particular Europe. So the watchability factor obviously exists there, but outside of the athleticism and skill, I think I'd have to put it in good. It's not great because, again, you need ice skates, you need like a hockey rink. It's mostly cold countries that are playing hockey. It's not like swimming or tennis or volleyball or even the top two goated sports that you can play in any season, any time. Before I forget, let me put cross country back into decent. I think, track and field cycling and cross country all run into kind of the same. It's just unadulterated athleticism. And lastly, baseball. I think decent is a fine place to put baseball. I'm going to put it at the upper end of decent, right below football. Baseball is really fun to play. It kind of takes a while to get used to like all of the rules, especially if you're watching baseball. And one big reason that you might not ever actually understand the rules through watching baseball is because you'll fall asleep 5 minutes through the game. The games take too long. Not much is happening. You have to wait 30 seconds until the next hit. But that's America's favorite pastime. What else can I say about that? It's fun. You need to be athletic for sure to play baseball, and you need to be skilled. So this is the final tier list. I'm pretty happy with how it ends. Basketball is the greatest sport of all time, and you can't convince me otherwise ever. If you disagree with me, you're probably wrong, because I'm Luca and I'm the ultimate tag player, whatever the fuck I said earlier. If you guys don't agree, make sure to hate on me in the comments, and I will tell you why you're wrong. We could add some more sports for next time if we need to, but what I'm really interested in is talking about what is a sport, what's not a sport, and the distinction between sport, game, and competition. Because archery is a competition, chess is a game, and soccer is a sport. So again, if you agree with this list, please let me know down below in the comments. If you disagree, please flame me even harder in the comments. And again, I will defend my pride. I'll defend my honor with facts and logic. If facts and logic don't come through to you, I'll probably just verbally abuse you until you believe me. So thank you once more for watching. If you guys have any idea about anything I should react to, anything I should play, or any tier list that you'd like to see be created by the Stanford graduate himself, Mr. Never Wrong, Mr. 6'4", Mr. Top 100 Pokemon player, please let me know. And until then, I hope everybody has a great day, and I love you all, even if your takes are wrong.